Adat Netzer Yisra'il presenta Yisra'il TV, Canal 26.7, Los Ángeles, California, uniendo pueblos. Yisra'il TV, Canal 26.3, Los Ángeles, California, uniendo pueblos.
Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Thank you very much for being with us here today. Today's parasha is Vayera. Today is one of the parashats or Torah portions that I should say that are going to help us understand how the Mashiach, how the Messiah of Yisra'il, it's embedded in through the entire scriptures. And not only that, it helps us to understand the Hebrew concept of a lot of things in the scriptures. So, and once again, today's parasha is very important. Parashat Vayera. Vayera means I appear, referring to the Creator when He appeared to Moshe, to Moses, and he pretty much, Moshe was called upon for this great calling to bring the good news, or delivering our forefathers from the bondage from Egypt. But it's very important because this parasha is going to help us to understand a lot of things, and I really want you to take notes of this. I know it's very important to listen to everything, but taking notes helps us a lot to do more research, to search it out, to go out there and do your own digging into these things. These things are very true. They are embedded into the scriptures. We just have to dig into that. So once again, Parashat Vayera. Let's start in Exodus or Shemot, chapter 6, verse 2. Chapter 6, verse 2 through 9:35. That's the Torah portion for today's Shabbat. And it starts like this. And the Almighty spoke to Moshe and said to him, I am Yahweh. Verse 3, Vayera. Vayera means I appear to Abraham, to Yitzhak, to Yaakov as Shaddai. And by my name Yahweh was I not known to them. This is very important concept and context in the scriptures, because here a lot of people have this understanding that the Creator never revealed His name to our forefathers, which it doesn't make any sense because it's in the entire scriptures. As we previously talked before, how the Creator revealed His name to our forefathers, Yitzhak, Jacob, Adam, Abraham. But the way you see these scriptures here in chapter 6, Vayera appeared to Abraham, is because if you notice here in the same verse, chapter 6, verse 3, it says, I appeared to Abraham as Shaddai. What do we understand about Shaddai? Shaddai means the protector. For instance, each one of us, those who has a mezuzah in our homes, our households, we usually have a mezuzah. The mezuzah is a little case, and outside there's a shin. The shin is short for Shaddai. Shaddai means the protector. The Creator is our protector of our homes. If everybody knows, well, not everybody, but most of us knows, we recite the Shema. The Shema is the Hear Yisra'il, Yahweh, our Creator, Yahweh, it is one. In that portion of chapter 6, verse 4 through 9, it's a little scroll, it's inside the mezuzah. So he is our protector. He said that you should bind them in your post. That's what he says in the Torah. And that's what we do. He is our protector when we go in, when you go out, and he is our protector. So if you notice in, I believe it's in chapter 12 of Bereshit or Genesis, the Creator said to Abraham, I will be your shield, I will be your protection. And sure enough, he was his protector. He was with Jacob, he was with Yitzhak, he was with our forefathers. He was his protector. That's why he gives his title as Shaddai, the protector. So here we see a title. I appeared to Abraham, Yitzhak, Jacob as Shaddai. But the huge question that it arises here is that, was it not known by Yahweh himself, by his name to our forefathers? And the answer is yes, he did. But we have to understand what the name of the power of the name of Yahweh, it's embedded in his name. Remember, in his name, it derives everything, the creation itself. Us. Later, in other parashas, we'll bring a little bit more our connection between us as a creation and the name of the Creator. In another parasha we'll bring it. But here we see them in the name of Yahweh. It's embedded the power of the Creator, the might of the Creator. That's why his title is Almighty, because he is Almighty. He's the most powerful Creator in the entire world. There is no one else like him. So that's why he is Echad. He is one. So it is very important to understand this concept, and we will bring those concepts through the scriptures as we go along. Let's see what we see here in Ishayahu or Isaiah 19:20. And it shall be for a sign and for witness for Yahweh Sevaot, or Yahweh the host, in the land of Egypt. For they shall cry to Yahweh because of the oppressors, and he shall send them a Mashiach, it's in the scriptures, a Mashiach, even a great one, and I will deliver them. You see that here? I will save them a Mashiach. What is the meaning of the word Mashiach? The Mashiach means an anointed. Moshe was anointed. David was anointed. And many more were anointed through the entire scriptures. Many were Mashiachs. Anointed, that's what it means, anointed. But there is only one Mashiach. One Mashiach that he goes beyond all the anointed ones. He is the Mashiach. And we're talking about the Mashiach of Yisra'il, Yahushua. But here we see a foreshadow of the Mashiach that it was coming to the world. But we know that Mashiach in that time of Egypt was Moshe. He was anointed. So here, let's see another verse. Ezekiel 20 verse 5. 25 says, and I said to them, so say Yahweh, in the day I chose Yisra'il and lift my hand to the seed of the house of Jacob, and I was made known. Do you see that? I was made known to them in the land of Egypt, when I lift up my hand to them, saying, I am Yahweh, your Almighty. Do you see that here? Here is a very strong evidence that here was made known to them as Yahweh Sevaot. You see that? I was made known. Do you notice how we went back earlier? Let's go back a little bit. And if you notice earlier how it goes back and says this. It says, and I was not made known to them. How was it that he Yahweh was not made known to our forefathers? We're talking about here, it was not made known in his might. Remember the way he was made known to in Egypt, to our forefathers in Egypt when they were in bondage, it was not the same as it was made known to our forefathers as Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob. He was more like as a protector in all the enemies that they had and so forth. But we can see pretty much here that in this verse, in this era, in this event, we can see pretty much that that the Creator was made known in Egypt as might, with his might and power. We can see all over to it. So let's see another verse in book of Devarim or Deuteronomy. And because 4:37, and because he loved your fathers and your seed after them, and brought you out of their presence, and with this great power, do you see that here? With this great power, and out of Egypt. Here we can see pretty much a huge verse that the Creator is saying pretty much that because he loved the promise, the covenant that he made with our forefathers, with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob, he made the promise that will bring them out of the power, with great power, out of Egypt. So here we can see a great example of how the Creator is saying these things. Ezekiel 38:22 and 23, and I will judge him with plague and with blood and overflowing shower and hailstone, and I will rain and brimstone on him and on his bands and on many people who are with him. And I will magnify myself with, it says, and kedushah, set apart myself apart, and I will be known in the eyes of the many nations, and they shall know that I am Yahweh. Do you see that here? Here we see another example how the Creator, it's embedding this through the prophets, that he was made known to this land, to Egypt, as Yahweh. How? Very simple, with this might. We know that there were 10 plagues. We know that they not only they were 10 powerful plagues that they probably never, these Egyptians never ever seen before, but they experienced these miracles, these judgments to them, and we can pretty much see that these judgments came upon the land of Egypt, and they realized after the 10th plague that Yahweh was, he was powerful. He was powerful. And not only that, the nations, after they heard what happened to the Egyptians, they were afraid, because we can see all over the scriptures in the Tanakh, in the Torah especially, where we can see that the nations around, they heard about what happened to Egypt, and they said, no, we don't want nothing to do with the Israelites, because the Creator is with them. The Yahweh is with them. They knew the Creator by his name. So pretty much we can know that these things happen in this event. Ezekiel or 20 verse 8. This is a very important text, because I want you to acknowledge something important, and it goes like this: but they rebel against me, and they will not obey me. All of them did not throw away, do you see that? The abominations which were before their eyes, nor did they forsake their devices of Yisra'il. So I resolved to pour out my wrath on them, to complete my displeasure against them in the midst of the land of Yisra'il. Here in this verse, it is very important to understand that this verse brings us back to this land and their pagan practice. Remember that they didn't worship one Elohim, one demon, one God, one idol. They have plenty. They have plenty to choose from, and they have so many abominations there that it was countless, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, we can see pretty much that these things happen, and they have so many abominations there, so many devices. Devices here in the Hebrew means their practice, what they practice. the Egyptian practice, the way they did things, was completely against what the Creator wanted to give our forefathers. But here in this verse is very important, because in red it says, "And all of them did not throw away the abominations which were before their eyes." Here he's talking about in double direction. He's talking about our forefathers when they were in bondage, and at the same time where it is talking about the Egyptians. And look at the next verse, verse 9. "But I acted for my name's sake," do you see that? "That I would not be profane before the eyes of the Gentiles, among whom they were, before whose eyes I have made myself known to them." Do you see that? I myself known to them, to bring them out of the land of Egypt. In this verse we can see pretty much, now we can see pretty much why clear, that in this event of when the Creator brought them out of Egypt, He was made known to them powerfully. He made Himself known very, very in the eyes of all the Egyptians. And not only that, he goes on to say in the verse 10. Before that, let's read something very important. In verse 10, I want you to see this. Verse 10, I didn't put that, but in verse 10 says that, "And I brought them out of in the desert, and I gave them the Torah, and I gave them all these good things so they can live by." And these verses are very powerful, because we can see pretty much that that the Creator opened Himself, He revealed Himself to make Himself known, His name and His might in this era. And everybody saw it, especially when they crossed the Yom Suf, the Sea of Reeds, what they call it today, the Red Sea. And we can see pretty much that these things actually happened not only to our forefathers, but to the people that were around. They were not even Israelites. A lot of people went out with our forefathers. There were non-Israelites. And not only that, the Egyptians that were on the other side of the Yom Suf. So all these things, there were eyewitness among them, a lot of them. Now, the next thing I wanted to bring is that every one of us must see the liberation of slavery as something that happened to us. And this is very important, because this concept, especially when we take the Seder or Seder, what they call it, the Seder or the Seder, is when we take the Pesach or the Passover, we bring all this. We bring how our forefathers went out of Egypt, and how they prepared themselves, how the Creator told Moshe to prepare them to get them out of that place. So in the Seder, we read pretty much the story of what happened. But once again, we have to understand that these things, we have to see it as it literally happened to all of us. So book of Devarim, or Deuteronomy chapter 16:3 says, "Because you came forth out of the land of Egypt, that you may remember the day," you see that? The day of your coming forth out of the land of Egypt. What does it say in green? All the days of your life. All the days of your life. Now below it says the days of your life refers only to the world, but, do you see that? All the days of your life includes the time of Mashiach. This is a very important concept. The days of your life only refers to this world, when we are born and die. But when it says all the days of your life, includes the time of Mashiach. That includes when the Mashiach comes and so forth. That means all this is going to be remembered. And at the end of the teaching, we will bring this. Why does it say that? Very, very important concept, that we should remember all this until the Mashiach comes. Until the Mashiach. So, in Micah, or Micaiah 7:15, and according to the days of thy departure out of the Egypt, that you see marvelous things. You notice here the days of thy departure. This is very important because we can not only see in one prophet, we see in many prophets that these things actually happen. A lot of people believe that the slavery of our forefathers, the bondage of our forefathers in Egypt, was just a myth. It's not even on the Egyptian hieroglyphics or records. But nevertheless, if you do research, the reason why is it that we don't find, quote unquote, there is evidence. There is evidence, and we just need to search it out. I actually watched a documentary on Netflix, by the way, if you guys want to look at it, and he talks about how this filmmaker wanted to find out why is it that it's not found on the Egyptian records on history. So he went on to do his own research, and it's actually on Netflix if you guys want to look at it. And he says there that he went on to say that he went and search, and to make the long story short, he find out that the Egyptians, or the Egyptologists, or the scientists, or the archaeologists, they wrong dated all the Egyptian timeline. All the chronology is all wrong. And they don't want to change it right now because they have to start all over again, and it's going to be a whole lot of mess. They don't want to change it. So, and they don't want to accept a lot of things that happen. So, in other words, the chronology dates wrongly. So, when the filmmaker goes on to find out that he find out about Joseph in Egypt, a tomb for Joseph. Not only that, evidence that there were names of slaves. They have Hebrew names in many of the books, and in a lot of things. I mean, it's a lot of evidence that shows that that our forefathers were in bondage, and this has actually happened to our forefathers. Very important stuff. Very important stuff. In the case of the verse, we say that the following: that in the days when he, Moshe, or the generation of Exodus, came out of the land of Egypt, I will show him to the Mashiach, or the generation of the final redemption of wonders. Now, when we see here, we not only we see something very important here. When the days, he said, the days. It doesn't say the day, the days in plural. This is very concept because this includes not only that event, but the future events, and that includes the Mashiach himself and the final redemption. Very important because we have to understand it doesn't say as a singular, it says as plural. Very important. I want you to see this verse, and I want you to please search it out. It's there in the scriptures. In the King James Version says present. In Exodus 15 verse 1 it says, I sing to Yahweh, saying I sing to Yahweh. Verse 2 says, he is my Almighty, I praise him, in present. But if you go into the Torah, it doesn't say that. It says, they Moshe in the same chapter 15, 1 and 2, it says, and Moshe and the sons of Yisra'il sang this song to saying to Yahweh. They spoke saying, I will sing to Yahweh. Do you see that? I will sing in future. You see that? Verse 2 says, I will exalt him. Do you see that? Again, it's not present, it's not past, it's future. Here is very important because here we see the future here. Not only as an event that happened in the past or the present, it's saying in the future. That includes all of us. That's amazing thing here in the Torah. Let's read another thing. Revelation, look at that. That's what I'm talking about, in the future. You see that? Revelation 15:3. And they sing, you see that? The son of Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, the son of the Lamb. The same verse that we just read in Exodus, they sing the son of Moshe. What song? The one we just saw earlier. The previous song, Exodus 15. The same song that they praise is the same song that we see here that we will sing. The son of Moshe, the servant of Yahweh. And we see the Revelation is not talking about past, present, is talking about future. That means this happened to be in the future. So this is very important information that the Torah revealed to us, that the Torah it always conveys the past, present, and future, and which is very important for our redemption. Micah 7:15 says, as in the days, you see that in plural, in the days when you came out of the land of Yisra'il or Egypt. Now the question is, why does it say the days? The exit or the exodus of Yisra'il was in one day. Remember this, it's very important question. Why does it say the days if the event or the exit or the exodus was on that night? It was on the 15th of Abib, on the first month, Abib. Remember that they went out in that night, in the 15th of Abib, they went out of Egypt. But Micah says days. You see that? That means that it's not only talking about one event, it's talking about all of us. It's talking about all of us. Look at the Exodus 6:6 or Shemot 6:6, and I shall redeem you with a stretched arm, and I would with the great judgments. You see that? I will redeem you. Now, here is very important because before I go into chapter 6, I want to stretch a little bit on the previous verse, which are very important. And the reason why it says the days is because that includes all of us. We're still in coming out of Egypt. We're still getting out of this place of bondage. Remember that this Egypt means limited. Egypt means limited. We are limited in this world, but we are coming out of it. And when the Mashiach comes, he will bring us, he will bring us a complete redemption of all these things. So this is very important to note, and I wanted to stretch a little bit into this. Now, in Exodus 6:6, it says, I will redeem you with a stretched hand and great judgments. In Exodus 15:13 or Shemot, it says, in your kindness you let your people whom you have redeemed. Another verse where it says you have redeemed. And the reason why I bring these verses about redeeming is because we have to understand the word, what does it mean to redeem. Let's start with the first one, and we will get into that in a bit. We will get into that in a bit. What does it mean to redeem? We'll bring it in a few more minutes. But I do want to bring about the Seder or the Seder of Pesach is very important for us to know, because this concept, the Hebrew concept, how we can understand the Hebrew concept, and as we go along, we will explain why there are four important things that the Torah brings, and these important things that we will see next are the four cups. When we take the Pesach, are four cups, and these four cups we'll see it next, and we go little by little. The first cup is the cup of Kadushah, or separation. If you go here in Exodus 6:6, it says, I should bring you out. I should bring you out. When the Creator says four things are very important, and the first one is, I should bring you out. Let's go with Psalms 118:14. Yah, or Yahweh, is my strength and song, and He has become my deliverance. You see that? He has become my deliverance. Remember this, that when the Creator wanted to bring our forefathers from that limited place, that they could not do a lot of things, He's bringing them out for freedom in reality, for freedom. Remember, the 15 of Abib is freedom. 15 of Abib is freedom. So it's very important that we have to understand this concept on the 15. So the deliverance that the Creator, He's separating us. That's what is called the Kapo Kadusha. Is the separation. He's separating us from the rest. When He bring them out of Egypt, He's bringing out of the land of oppression, the land of idolatry. Now He's separating them and giving them the Torah. In the book of Devarim, or Deuteronomy chapter 7:6, for you are set apart people. Do you see that? To Yahweh, your Almighty. Yahweh, your Almighty has chosen you to be a people for Himself. Do you see that? A people for Himself, a set apart people, what is called Kedoshim. Kedoshim means set apart to Yahweh. See that? That's why this cup is very important, the cup of separation, of Kedusha. Malakiyah or Malakiyah 3:17, and they shall be mine, says Yahweh of hosts, or Sebaot, on that day that I prepare a treasure possession. Do you see that? They shall be mine. You see this, the cup of separation, the cup of the Kedusha, very important. In Matthithiyah 19:29, the Mashiach says these words, which are very important, that goes to all of us too. And everyone who has left houses, or brothers, or sisters, or fathers, or mothers, wives, children, or land, for my name's sake, and shall inherit everlasting life. You see that here? Very important, because not only is Yahweh Himself said it, but the Mashiach said these things about being separated to the Creator. Now, it could go both ways, in being separated, but in the Ruach realm, in the spiritual realm, we have to understand that those who are knowledgeable in the Torah and are wanted to serve the Creator, there is always something that hinders us. It could be our family, it could be for wife, children, anybody, or the Creator said separated for them, for their practice. Remember, let me give you an example. Jacob was living in a household full of idolatry. He was living with his uncle Laban, or Laban, and remember that he practiced witchcraft. He was very good at it, but he was living there for many years. And we know that Yaakov never involved into that. He always kept Torah. And we know that is the same thing. He was separated from that evil abomination practice. Same thing with this. The Mashiach says that we need to be separated. You need to leave those practices from our family, for my wife, for anybody that hinder us from keeping Torah. Second cup, the cup of deliverance. The cup of deliverance. This cup is also important because we see it here, chapter 6:6, the same verse of Shemot, and it says, I shall deliver you. In chapter 12:4 of Bereshit, or Genesis, and Abraham was 75 years old when he Yatzah. Yatzah means departed from Haran. The word Yatzah means to go, to approximate, to appear, to bring forth, to carry out. So in other words, he went out of that place. Remember that Abraham wasn't living the same thing as he was with his forefather, with Abraham, Jacob also. He was living in a land full of idolatry. The same thing with Abraham. Abraham was living with his father, who was idolatrous. So he went out of that place. That's why Yahweh said, get out of your parenthood, and I will bring you, I will separate you, I will deliver you to another place. So this is very important. In Psalms, or Tehillim 1:16-13. And I will lift up the cup of salvation. Do you see that? And I will call on the name of Yahweh. You see that? I will lift up the cup of salvation. Very important, because here we see how the Creator delivered us from anything. He delivered David from the hands of Shaul. He delivered him, not only Shaul, but his enemies from the Philistines and so forth. So this is very important, because David knew the concept of the cup, the four cups. Matithiyah Shem Tov 20:28, or Matthew in Hebrew says, and to give his life a ransom for many. He himself, the Mashiach, he himself is quoting this this verse, because remember, the Mashiach took the Seder. The Mashiach took the Seder in the last Pesach that he took. He took the Seder. He took the Pesach. He took the Seder. It was something that it was well known in the first century, and we'll see it very, very soon. So here is very important. Let's go into the third cup. Is the cup of redemption. The cup of redemption is very important as well. The concept of redemption in the Hebrew Scriptures is represented mainly by two words. The word in the current text is padah, okay, and also is gaal. Gaal represents ransom or redeem. By translators, the is in the Greek is lutron. So it appears 42 times, and also it appears that this word conveys the idea of ransom or redeem. What's the difference between Gaal and Padah, especially since the translations are in the Septuagint? So we have to understand what does it mean by those two. So the main difference is the Gaal is regularly found in the family relations, and while Padah simply means ransom for the payment of a price for anybody, without the difference of relationship. In other words, what this is trying to say here is that the Gaal or Goil means the Redeemer, referring to the Mashiach, or referring to especially to the Mashiach. He says, referring to him, that the word Padah means when some family member was redeeming another family. In this case, let me give you an example. The word Gaal refers to Ruth and Boaz. They were family members one way or other, so he was redeeming a family member. So the word is Gaal. You see that here? The same with the Mashiach, it refers to Goil, the same word Gaal. So very important on these two concepts. Therefore, Gaal is used to redeem a family member, often from slavery. Proof more of this family aspect of the word is the fact that the often more means blood avenger. The avenger of blood, by his own definition, was a close family person. Do you see that? So this is very important to take note of this concept, in the Hebrew concept, that the close family person, that it was the blood avenger was pretty much it was imputed into this word, into this event. So the third cup, let's read on 2 Corinthians 5:21. Yahweh made these sinless men to be, you see that, a sham, a sin offering. The word asham means sin offering in our behalf, so that in the union with him we might fully share in Yahweh righteousness. That means tzedakah. So in Mashiach, Yahushua, he made himself as asham. Asham means in Hebrew, and we'll see it next, it means sin offering. Sin offering. Remember, there are 4 kinds of offerings of korbans or korbanot. 4 kinds. The first one is todah, of give thanks. The second is give thanks, of course. And the one of them is for the sin offering. The other one is to make a vow. Okay, and all these korbans are very important for us to understand. But the one that applies to the Mashiach applies many, but this one especially is Asham. Asham is the one that applies here. Let's look at what it says here in Hillel or Luke 22:15. And he said to them, I have really wanted to so much to celebrate this Seder, or this Pesach, with you before I die. For I'll tell you that it's as certain that I will not celebrate it until it is giving a full meaning in the kingdom of Yahweh. Do you see that? I will not celebrate this until it gives the full meaning in the kingdom of Yahweh. So in other words, the Mashiach implies so many things in this verse that we'll see next. But here we can pretty much see something very important. Here is telling you something for the future. It's telling something that is not fully open for all of us, but it will fully be open to all of us to understand in the kingdom of Yahweh. Here it says the Mashiach that he would not take, certainly he wanted to do this before he died, he says. For I'll tell you that I will not celebrate it until the kingdom, the full meaning of the kingdom of Yahweh. Here is very an important concept, because the Mashiach was giving a lot of things here. Look at what it says here in Luke 22:20 or Hillel 22:20. Likewise, the cup also after supper, or the Seder or the Pesach, saying, this cup is the renewed covenant for my blood, which I set for you. Do you see that? The cup. Once again, in the first century, this Seder, the Seder of Pesach, was pretty much well known in the first century. With the statement that Yahushua made, is incredible connection between the event that took place 1400 years before his birth and the prophecy that was 600 years earlier. The event was Pesach, and it was from the Yeshayahu, was prophesied by Yeshayahu. Look at what it says, Yeshayahu 53:10. But Yahweh was pleased to crush him, and he laid sickness on him, that when he made himself, you see that, an Asham. Asham means sin offering. You can read the whole chapter pretty much, but in chapter 53 that talks about the Mashiach and his suffering, but verse 10, it actually says the word Asham. He made himself an Asham. Asham means sin offering. One of the 4 korbans that were made in the Torah. Now, I want you to see something very important here. And before we go on this, what we are about to bring, a lot of people think that the Brit Hadashah is just what they call it today, the New Testament. It's just for the Christians and so forth. But we have to understand the Hebrew concept of this. We are in the process of changing our Hebrew mind, our Hebrew culture, to the Greco-Roman pagan mind that is embedded through us for many years. Our forefathers embedded this, injected this for so many years. Our great-great-grandfathers, for years and years they were embedded the Western Greco-Roman mind. That's why we don't understand a lot of things in the scriptures. But it is time for us to understand in the Hebrew concept that these things are true. But it's there, and sometimes we don't literally see it. It's because of the translations on the scriptures, which are so messed up. So we will see it through the scriptures that the Brit Hadashah is actually in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew scriptures. In Jeremiah 31:31, look at what it says here. Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will cut, do you see that? A Brit Hadashah. Brit Hadashah means renewed covenant. You see that? Brit Chadashah means renewed covenant. With whom? Obviously, with the house of Yisra'il, us, and the house of Judah, our Jewish brothers. Do you see that? Very important here. And I want you to see it here in Hebrew below. If you notice below, it says Berit Chadashah. I want you to see it. Please go on to the Hebrew. That's what it says. I'm not making it up. It's there in the scriptures. It's there in the scriptures, and that's what it means. It means Berit Chadashah, the renewed covenant. Renewed covenant. Now let's look at what it says in the Shem Tov Matitiyah in Hebrew. Look at what it says here. The same thing the Mashiach says in the Shem Tov of Hebrew. Shem Tov Matitiyah in Hebrew says, for this representing my blood of the Brit Chadashah, you see that, of the renewed covenant, which concerning many being poured out. And I went farther to bring you out on the Hebrew. What does it mean? You look at what it says here in Hebrew. It means, if you notice on the arrows, it means Berit. You see that? Berit. And the next one is Chadashah. You see that? Berit Chadashah. The same thing you see it earlier in Jeremiah 31:31. Here, amazing how the Creator is opening our eyes. That is being there the entire time. He's been there in the Tanakh about these things. Our Mashiach is real. The scriptures are real. The Torah is life for all of us. 22:18 of Hillel or Lucas or Luke. For I say to you that I will not drink from the produce of the wine again until the kingdom of Yahweh comes. This is very important statement that the Mashiach comes, because here, remember, there are four cups that the attributes of Yahweh in chapter 6:6 of Shemot. 6:6 of Shemot are four attributes of Yahweh. I will bring you out. I will deliver you. I will redeem you. But the fourth one, it is yet to come. Not yet. It is yet to come. The Mashiach needs to fulfill it. And he will fulfill it when he comes back again. That's what the Mashiach said. I will not drink from this cup. I will not drink it until the kingdom of Yahweh comes. Many years ago, when I was a child, I needed to understand this. And I said, okay, I understand in the Greco-Roman mind. Now that we understand more of the Torah, now we understand what the Mashiach and the Hebrew concept of this statement. The Mashiach was holding on for the fourth cup that we see here. Before we go on, once again, before we go on to the next thing, I wanted to bring something very important. In the Seder, we have to understand that there are wine, of course. There are also the matzot. The matzot are the unleavened bread. Okay, the matzot are the unleavened bread that we eat on the Seder or Seder or Pesach. And then there is a sheet. There are a sheet for 3 layers. I'm sorry. We put one on top, one on the bottom, and one in the middle. The middle, you break it. In the middle, you break it and you heat it inside. And this is a custom, a tradition it goes back to the 1st century. It traces back to the 1st century. So this is not something that it was made like 20 years ago. This goes back to the 1st century. So the word that I'm going to bring, and I want you to do research, this is well known into the Hebrews, our Jewish brothers, they know about this thing. But the amazing thing is that this word afikomen, they translate it into the Hebrew, but the actual word is not Hebrew, is Greek. Amazingly, because a lot of people don't understand that this word is not Greek, is not Hebrew. It was translated to Hebrew, but this word derives from the Greek. Based on Greek, afikomen, which means that which comes after, or the dessert, is a piece of it's a piece in the middle of the matzah that is broken into during the early stages of the Seder, of the Pesach, or the Pesach, and reserved to eat as the dessert after the meal. Do you see that? Near the beginning of the tradition of the Seder Pesach, a piece of matzah is broken in half. The largest of the two pieces is hidden in the canvas until the end of the meal, when it is brought forth from the concealment. You see that? It is shared by anyone at the table that is last mouthful. This broken and hidden piece is matzah, is called the afikomen. Now this piece of bread is called afikomen and is hidden underneath the sheet in the middle of those two layers. Now the ceremony in the name of afikomen is a mystery. None of this is explained in the Haggadah of Pesach, which is the Seder of Pesach, nor it is mentioned in the scriptures, of course. And the afikomen item appears in the first, the Mishnah, the early collections of the legal rabbinical codified around the 200s. And although the afikomen it is written in Hebrew letters, but is actually in Greek. The afikomen, the Jewish historian disagreed on why the Greek term entered the liturgical tradition of Pesach, and why is it that the historian said it is uncertain the etymology. Others said that it derives from the afikomen dessert, or in other words, there is a lot of concepts. Some think that it means the dessert, other ones they call them after the dinner, and other ones call them the festival or the festive song. So it's a lot of reverberations and a lot of comments and names that they give them, but none of them know for sure, because in reality this meaning was lost. So over the centuries the meaning was lost or deliberately forgotten because somebody wanted to do this. So if you notice below, you see afikomoi, afikomen, afikomun. You see that? In 1925, Australian Hebrew Jew Schneider named Robert Eichler argued that at the time of Yahushua, the afikomen was originally part of the Messianic ritual established during the Pesach. He said that the whole piece of matzah held at the beginning of the meal represented to all Yisra'il, while the broken part of it stood for the desired Mashiach. Do you see that? I'm going to read it back again. He said that the whole piece of the matzah held at the beginning of the meal represented all Yisra'il, the whole nation of Yisrael, while the broken part of stood for the dessert. For that broken matzah was the desired Mashiach. When the hidden afikomen emerged from the occult at the end of the cult, or the hidden, there was hidden, the broken matzah. It was the coming of symbolizes the coming of the Mashiach in the midst of his people. Do you see that? So in other words, we can see pretty much something hidden here, that it actually is telling you about our Mashiach. Remember that everything that is written about in the Tanakh, everything talks about the Mashiach. We just have to look for it. It is there the entire time. And the reason why today our Jewish brothers don't much talk about it is because I said it before, and I'm going to say it again, that in 323 or 325, I should say, when Constantine came out with this Jesus Christ entity, not the Mashiach Yahushua, but Jesus Christ entity, and a lot of things happened right after that, the Dark Ages and so forth. All these things happened because and this hatred to our Jewish brothers and so forth, to the Hebrews, because remember they were still keeping the Shabbat and so forth. They were persecuted and so forth. And so these hard feelings came about, and prior to that, the rabbinical scriptures, a lot of rabbinical literature that were talk about the Mashiach was in favor of the Mashiach. But right after these persecutions start, a lot of hard feelings came about, and a lot of rabbinical literature came to. They literally burned a lot of rabbinical prior to that, because they want to get rid of all that, because in favor of the Mashiach. But only few survive. But the new rabbinical literature that you see today, it's against the Mashiach, against the Christians. And is not. We understand they were persecuted for many years in the case of the Christian, case. So yeah, it's totally understandable, and that's what all these things are kind of lost. In Shem Tov Matityahu, Matthew 11:3, and said to him, "Are you the coming one?" You see that? The concept is, are you the coming one? Earlier we see the coming of the Mashiach in the midst of these people. Do you see that? In Matthew 11:3, "Are you the coming one?" They ask him. In John or Yohanan 3:14, "Then the man, having seen the sight, Yeshua did said, truly the prophet who is coming to the world." Do you see that? Truly he is the prophet who coming to the world. We see verses after verses about what this thing means. Look at what it says in Yohanan 11:27. She said to him, "Yea, Master, I believe that you are the Mashiach, the Son of the Almighty, who is the coming to the world." You see that? Coming to the world. Why? Because everybody knew this concept of the coming Mashiach. The verb used in the text of akormenus or akormi na afikomi, the equivalent of haba, which means coming. So that means in Hebrew, the equivalent of afikomai means haba, the coming. So let's read what it says in Hebrew in Psalms Tehillim 118:26. "Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh. Baruch haba." You see the Baruch haba b'shem Yahweh. You see that? Baruch haba b'shem Yahweh. Baruch haba b'shem Yahweh. Here we see something very important. In the same way, later, the original Pesach of Yahweh in 1 Corinthians 11:20 was obscured by two forces. The forces was Constantine in 325, as we mentioned earlier, and the second is when the second force is the hatred discussion of the church about the treasures of the Catholic when they introduced the sacrament and all the communion that you see with the Catholic Mass, how they do all those things. It was obscured completely because two forces, Constantine in the Dark Ages and the persecution of our Jewish brothers, and the second is because of the Catholic, how they introduced their Mass and their pagan practice. So that's why it was obscured, two forces. In the time of the first century, the symbolism that is said there and the Afikoman disappear. Then the Catholic Church introduced the Eucharist, the host, the communion, and the bread, and the breaking of the bread. And it is something that is a truly remark that we have to make, that's why you see something, a lot of things are very, how can I say this? A lot of things are very similar. Remember, Chasatani is always wanting to imitate the Creator. Always. He done it since day one. He wanted to imitate the Creator. That's why you see a lot of things are similar, because they took it from the Seder. They took it from the Hebrew concept of our forefathers. In Luke 22:19, also taking the piece of matzah, he made a beracha, he made the blessing, and then what did he do? He broke it, you see that? And he gave it to them and said, "This is my body." You see that? He broke it and he said, this is my body. And being given to you to memory, do this in memory of me. Very important, because we're going to see something hidden here. In Mark 15:45, after he had gotten confirmation from the officer that Yahushua was dead, he granted Yosef, what he granted? The body. You see that? In the next verse, it says, Yosef purchased the linen sheet. You see that? Linen sheet, and after taking Yahushua down, what did he do? He wrapped him in the linen sheet. You see that? The same thing we do in Seder of Pesach. In the Seder of Pesach, we do the same thing. We pretty much what the Mashiach was saying, what they were practicing in the first century, the Seder was, he broke it. He was doing the Seder. He was doing the Seder. He broke it. They were doing the same Seder we do today, and he was saying, this is my body. You see that? Then Yosef did the same thing. He got the body and he wrapped it on the sheet. You see that? Very important stuff. Very important revelation that the scriptures tell us how this Hebrew concept was in the first century until today. 1 Corinthians 13:12. For now we see obscurely in a mirror, but then I will be face to face. Now I know partly, then I will know fully. Here, Shaul is pretty much telling us that we know very little. We know so much up to a certain point, but we don't know everything. And it's true. Torah, we learn Torah every day. We learn Torah every week, every year. And we try to get to a next level of our lives, understanding Torah. I always say that every year we need to escalate another level, and the ladder, it needs to be another step every year. We can never go back. We need to escalate another level, and that's how we're gonna get to understand Torah. That's how we're gonna get to the Olam Haba, to when the Mashiach comes. But it's a must for us to understand that this is very important for us to understand. So here we see very important that the Shaul is saying that we just know very partly. We know up to a certain point. Let's go to the last cup, the cup of restoration. The cup of restoration is very important because here it says in 6:7 of Exodus, I will take you as my people. In Matthew 26:27, I'll tell you, I will not drink of this, the fruit of wine, again until I drink with you in the Father's kingdom. He did not drink of this cup, the fourth cup, until his coming, until his second return, until his return and his second advent take place. So the Mashiach is fully telling this, the present, future, and past here. Very important. In Psalms 118:14, Yah is my strength and my son, and he has become my salvation. You see that here? We see it very important because this would literally take place. 118:20, and by the way, Psalm 118, Tehillim 118, is basically, it's told in the Seder of Pesach, because this, remember that in the Shem Tov of Matthew, in all the Chronicles of Yahushua, they remember when he took the Pesach, he said that they sung psalms. You see that? One of the psalms happens to be this one, 118, the whole chapter. So let's read on, 118:20. This is the gate of Yahweh, the righteous enters through it. You see that? Here is telling you something for the future. Here is the Sadiq or Sadiqim, the righteousness, will enter into the gates of Yahweh. 118:26, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh, Baruch haba b'shem Yahweh, he shall bless you from the house of Yahweh. Do you see that? This is something in the future. Revelation 19:8, yeah. And to her it was given to be dressed in the fine linen and clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the set apart ones, or the Tzaddik. And he said to me, write, blessed are those, do you see that? Blessed are those who have been to the wedding or the feast, the wedding feast or the supper of the Lamb. And he said to me, these are true words of Yahweh. You see that? This is going to take place. This fourth cup is going to take place again with the Mashiach. And he said it very plainly that he would not take this cup until that day. Until that day is going to be very, very important. Now we're going to go final, we almost closing. The parasha, the Haftarah, the reference of this parasha is giving us to the prophets. And let's see First of Samuel 2:10. He says, he exalts the horn of the Mashiach. You see that? He exalts the horn of the Mashiach. Very important, because here he's saying something very important for the future. Look at what it says in 92:10 of Psalms. But you lift up my horn like a wild ox. I have been anointed with the fresh oil. Do you see that? But you lift up my horn like the wild ox. I have been anointed with the fresh oil. Here the Mashiach is saying how he was anointed by the Father. And we can see pretty much all these verses. Is not only talking about David here. These are foreshadow of the Mashiach here. 132:17 of Psalms. I will make the horn of David. Do you see that? I will make the horn of David to sprout, and I have arranged the land for my Mashiach. Do you see that? Here we see the foreshadow again of the Mashiach. A very important information for us. Once again, we see that in this parasha, this Torah portion, is bringing us to understand a better understanding about the Hebrew concept of our forefathers, also about the bondage of our forefathers in Mizraim, in Egypt. How we should always remember this. We can never forget about what our forefathers went through, about what we are going through that is similar. Remember in Ecclesiastes 1:9 says that what it was, it will be. In other words, history repeats itself. And we are living basically in a different era, but we are living basically in the same thing as our forefathers did. In a different era, this different concept, but it's the same thing. So it is Yahweh is the one who's helping us to understand these things, to open our minds, to bring back the Mashiach, to return the Mashiach in our days. Shalom to all of you. I welcome to all of you who are watching us, and thank you very much. I wanted to mention quite a few people. Literally, in the top of my head, there is a lady here in Europe that is first time she's watching us. I wanted to say shalom to you, and I'm sorry, so many things in my mind. A lot of things are escaping out of my mind. But I want to say to you, I want to say Rapha'Yah, shalom to you in Texas, in Sam in Africa, and many, many more that are watching us through Facebook and also simultaneously in YouTube. So welcome once again. Thank you for watching us. We'll be back again in next week. I'm going to try to bring back something next week, throughout the week. If not, will be for the following week. But definitely we'll be here on Shabbat to bring back another parasha that is coming very soon. Thank you very much for everything, and Shabbat Shalom.
Adat Netzer Yisra'il presenta